Nintendo won this June Game Award, like game presentation season, without even really trying. It was like not even really a competition. I went into this expecting that. I like said it was gonna happen. I was saying this like all year long. Like it was just a matter of like how bad it was gonna be, honestly. And to no one's surprise, yeah, it was bad. Like Nintendo is so far ahead of second place that they must have laughed everyone else and just like dozens of times over, right? Because this presentation was absolutely killer. Like I would say this might be one of the best presentations we've gotten since I don't know. 2023 wasn't great. Maybe February 2023. But like I have not been happy with the last several directs. Okay, like I like said this. They all felt like kind of iffy. There were a handful of good announcements. Mario Wonder I wasn't sold on initially. So like seeing like this direct and seeing it come out with so many bangers, so many things I wanted. The return of Mario Luigi, a new 2D Zelda with a unique with from Grezzo, right? And finally seeing Metroid Prime 4. Like yeah, those three things alone killed it. And then you have everything else that they added, stuff that people don't even like understand are big deals, like Nintendo Switch Sports, right? How long have people like Demish been sitting there, like on their YouTube channels, trying to convince you that, like, oh, Nintendo Switch Sports is a bad game, because it doesn't have enough content. Oh, I don't care that it sold 12 million units and people still play it constantly today. It's one of the most embarrassing Nintendo Switch games ever. Like, the game is amazing. And not only that, it's getting new content. So for me, seeing like the damage control that people like Chi Guy and Demish like put forward about Nintendo Switch Sports fall flat on its face is like very gratifying to see. Because it felt like for a long time that like Nintendo Switch Sports was one of those Nintendo games that was just like disrespected by the community, right? It really did feel like a Star Fox Zero or Devil's Third kind of situation in which people really desperately tried pretending as if this game was like some epic failure, when in reality it was a huge success and honestly is. Has gone on to be, I think, probably one of my favorite Nintendo sports games. Right? It is. It was a phenomenal. It was a phenomenal game, and I'm very excited to continue seeing it like get updated even today. And hopefully they didn't deconfirm this was happening. Like hopefully we continue getting more updates, right? Like I do think that this free update model, not confirming that games are getting updates is actually a pretty good, interesting take on the whole like free update thing, right? So they can make a really good game like Nintendo Switch Sports, have it come out, and then just periodically just release new content for it instead of like releasing a full sequel. Like I think for games like Nintendo Switch Sports, that actually makes a whole lot of sense. And I would like that model to be applied to other video game IPs like Splatoon and Mario Party. Like I don't think Splatoon 3 needed to be made. So like again, like I do think it's an interesting idea that they can really expand on in really good, interesting ways, right? Like I do very, very thrilled. Very, very thrilled about that. Prime 4, probably the big like showcase event. The thing that like normies are like pretending to be excited about. They're not Metroid fans, but Metroid is like the hardcore Nintendo IP. So people are gonna pretend it was like the highlight of the show, uh, even though they have no intention of playing it. I saw Angry Joe do this. So like, yeah, Prime 4 comes out. Looks good, looks interesting. I can't imagine it's better than like 1 and 3. So I just haven't seen enough yet. Like the whole like using Silux thing. It's just I don't know. Like I don't see like I just don't think we've seen enough like unique mechanics from Metroid Prime 4. Like the most interesting thing I saw about it is that like it's a jungle area that seems to have a lot of wildlife, which I really want out of Metroid games because like I always feel like you go into these games and like everything is like hostile towards you. So having like a more organic environment where not everything is trying to kill you all the time, that might actually be a good direction for the series to take, right? But the way it looks right now, it looks like it plays exactly like the older games. And that's not really what I wanted. I wanted some like more evolution and more innovation. And I suppose we haven't seen enough yet. Like the way it looks, like what we can see is that like Silex has like complete control over Metroids now. So like we're probably gonna see a lot more Metroids than we're used to seeing. Like they've traditionally always been like end game enemies, and I don't believe they featured in Dread at all. Is that correct? So like seeing Metroids like take a more prominent role in the plot, after like being extinct at the end of Super. Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting new direction for the story to take. Uh, but yeah, uh, but yeah, like as a whole, like I wish we saw a little bit more from it. We'll probably get a Nintendo Direct, like early next year or maybe even this year. Going into more detail about what it is. Like I can see this being like an early 2025 release, right? This is definitely a Nintendo Switch game. RIP, like Switch 2 rumors, like and yeah, I'm definitely really excited about it. And it is a 2025 release. I think like confirming that the Nintendo Switch is continuing well into the 2025, right? This might be like one of the last major Switch games, or maybe like the Switch will continue like for that throughout all of 2025. But like the way it looks right now is that the Switch has a lot more life in it, right? Like, and again, I do think that's the big thing to take away from this is that like every other YouTuber is like doing this thing where they're sitting there saying like, oh, we're at the end of the Switch's life cycle. Like, bro, you've been saying this since like 2018. Shut up. Like, it isn't gonna happen anytime soon, right? Until we get like an actual release date for the next console, we don't have like a date of like death certificate for like the Nintendo Switch. Okay. So stop saying that the Switch is on the way out like imminently. Like people want you to think this because like Nintendo Switch is definitely going to outsell the PS2 in the next couple of years. Like probably as early as like 2025, but right now like people like are desperately trying to prevent that from happening. Analysts are desperately pushing the idea that the Switch is going to drop off a rock once the next game comes out. Sony is like adjusting their PS2 sales numbers. They're like massaging them upwards. PS2 has gone from like 152 million units sold to like 160 million units in a decade, right? Inexplicably, purely to maintain their ill-gotten status as like the best-selling video game console ever, right? Like I think they created those PS2 sales numbers purely out of the expectation that like the record would never be shattered. So like once that happens, there will be no recovery for the brand. Is kind of my view on it. Like they've been completely reliant on like this idea that like they are the most popular video game platform on the planet. So seeing that like be dismissed is going to be a huge hefty blow to them. So big that I don't think they're going to recover from it, which is why they're so desperate to do everything they possibly can to downplay the situation. But yeah, um, so yeah, like you have like that, and then you have like Zelda is coming back, right? A playable Zelda in a Zelda game, and I vocally was against this idea a while ago because like the people pushing for it were like woke idiots, right? They really wanted this idea that like we're gonna have it's gonna be like a progressive thing, but like no, Nintendo did it in a very charming, innovative, creative way, right? They gave Zelda her own unique moveset, made her likable, like gave the game a unique premise, did not disrespect the Link character, which I think is like the big thing that like sets the way Nintendo does this kind of thing compared to other companies. Like they don't emasculate their male characters, right? You saw this in the Mario movie too, where Mario is still very much the protagonist of the Mario movie, even with Peach getting like her Amazonian upgrade. Like seeing the Mario, like seeing like Zelda, like seeing them like make a really unique, interesting, innovative gameplay like style with Zelda is interesting to me. Like this is like probably my most anticipated game of the year now, right? Like I was really shocked at how like at what I was seeing. Like I was really impressed by it. If they like nail this, if this is on the same level as like Ever Oasis or Triforce Heroes, like they are Grezzo is well on its way to establishing itself as a really genuine like Nintendo development powerhouse, right? And again, like I'm so disappointed that like people don't seem to understand about this about them, that they are legitimately talented. But I hope this game is like a major turning point in their reputation. Is my honest, genuine opinion about this? Because I think like they have been written off up until this point. Ever Oasis didn't do well. Triforce Heroes is like the worst selling Zelda ever. So like, I think this is going to be the moment that they like kind of become mainstream popular. Link's Awakening did reasonably well, so I expect this is going to do well too. So, and again, like this is another thing too. Like Nintendo is killing it when it comes to their female protagonists in games, right? Zelda has her own game, Peach has her own game, and Samus is getting a new game, right? Like she's in Metroid. Like again, it's phenomenal. Yes. So with that in mind, was this better than the Xbox Showcase? Obviously, right? Like so much so that like I'm kind of honestly like laughing at anybody who even suggests they were in the same ballpark, right? Somehow Nintendo Switch had a better Perfect Dark reveal than Microsoft did. Like you think about it, like Nintendo had a better reveal of Perfect Dark than Microsoft, who owned the IP now, unfortunately. So seeing that happen, seeing them like release Perfect Dark alongside, classic like Turok and Metroid Zero Mission and A Link to the Past, the Game Boy Advance version, like seeing them do that, like that's really telling, I think, of where things are now, right? Of just how like companies are not going to be able to do the thing they traditionally did of just like taking their iconic games and like keeping them off of Nintendo platforms because like people are just going to go for the Nintendo versions, right? Like people are just gonna like buy like Romancing Saga 2 on Switch or Dragon Quest 3 on Switch or like again like I think the old method of just like putting something on another platform and refusing to put it on Nintendo consoles like it's just not gonna work. Like people just are not going to buy other platforms for like for a game they want to play on Nintendo consoles. Is kind of my realization is kind of my feeling on this is I just don't think it's possible at this point. Like I think GTA 6 is going to be like kind of the last stand of non Nintendo game development, right? Like I don't think the narrative is going to survive another console generation. Like the idea that Nintendo cannot run these third party games. Like I saw that a lot in like the Angry Joe reaction. They're like sitting there complaining about all the remakes of games they've never played and trying to imply that like, oh, the Switch can't run modern games, but like what modern games can it not run? Like, especially considering that like we're in like the second half of the Switch lifespan cycle. Like, it's perfectly possible that like if we get the Switch 2 next year, it's possible it might be able to run. It might have GTA 6 on it like day one. Like I think it's a given that we're gonna get like Doom: The Dark Ages, right? I think at the very least, like the next Nintendo console will be getting a lot of these third-party games. So like I think at this point, like complaining about third-party games not coming to Switch is like a complete non-issue. And to me, I've been noticing this for a while. Like it feels like all of the complaints towards Nintendo right now are completely forced. Like people complain about their business practices, it's not true. People complain about their games never going on sale, they do. People complain about like the remakes and re-releases of games they've never played. If you've never played them, then why are you acting like they're not major and like they're not brand new to you? Like if you've never played them, like why are you like being so judgmental? Especially if you're like Angry Joe and you're sitting there like asking for like a re-release of Twilight Princess when while complaining about all the other remakes and remasters, like Donkey Kong Country Returns. Like the issue with remakes and remasters from other companies is that like those are coming out in an era where there's just no new games, period. Meanwhile, Nintendo's putting out all these bangers near constantly that just get ignored. Oh, by the way, that's another aspect of the Direct that I think a lot of people are underappreciating and why it's objectively better than the Xbox Showcase. Like basically everything they showed, other than like Metroid Prime 4, everything they showed in this presentation is coming out this year. Like within the next 6 months, we'll have like all of this. Zelda, Mario and Luigi, like everything. Like other than Metroid Prime 4, everything shown in this presentation will be out here this year. And Doom doesn't come out in 2025. Perfect Dark doesn't come out in 2025. Like, I don't think anything in that Xbox showcase is like coming out this year. So like with that in mind alone, like we can kind of assert that like yeah, we're going to get another Nintendo Direct uh before we get another Xbox presentation. So we're going to learn more about some of these games that we don't know all that much about. We'll probably see like maybe we might get another September Direct, and we'll get more information on Zelda and Mario and Luigi and Metroid Prime 4. Maybe that's what happened next year with last year with Princess Peach Showtime, right? Where they showed the teaser image, which didn't look exciting, and then they showed the actual gameplay footage, which was like amazing. I do think it's very possible that we might get another new Nintendo Direct very soon, right? To the point where like I think we might get like a new console reveal, right? So like again, there's like a lot of exciting Nintendo news that they didn't talk about in this direct. And I do think that's like something that a lot of people don't understand. Like Xbox like blew their load with this Xbox showcase, right? They prematurely ejaculated and they're leaving their customers like just bored and unsatisfied. While meanwhile Nintendo is just like, knocking out of the park with gamers left and right. You know, like it's insane. Like it's a Chad versus Virgin meme in like real life. You know what I mean? Like the difference in quality between the two are ridiculous, and so much so that like I really have to speak out against the hype the Xbox Showcase has had because I do think that they absolutely did have no shot. Like, and again, I really want to emphasize this that I saw so many people like hyping up the Xbox Showcase that like it really needs to be understood among the community that like Xbox had no chance at all at competing with Nintendo. PlayStation didn't, PC gaming didn't, right? The reality is that Nintendo is in a monopoly period right now, and right now we're seeing a bunch of boomers in their 40s, 50s, and 60s like desperately trying to deny it, right? Like Nintendo has won the console war, and yet this is just the next major step forward for them.